Short on time, too many gardening jobs to get through? Well, I won't keep you any longer then. Hi, I'm Ben, and here are my 10 must-try shortcuts to save you precious time in the garden. Try them and I promise you'll have more time to actually enjoy your garden. Seedlings, starts or young plants like these offer an immediate way to start your vegetable garden. Unlike starting from seed, there's none of the uncertainty of going through that seedling stage. They're ready to plant out straight away. So plug plants like these can be planted out right at their final spacing, and because they're a bit more established, they'll be able to withstand things like slugs a lot better. It also means less time till harvest. Yes, they may be a little bit more expensive than a packet of seeds, but often you don't need that many plants anyway. So really per plant, it only works out being a little bit more expensive, and you won't have as long to wait until harvest time. Planting's easy and quick if you do your preparation beforehand. Start by thoroughly soaking the root ball. That way your plants will establish quicker and they won't need watering quite as soon. The easiest way to do that is just to pop them into a tub of water. Leave your plants in the water till they're nice and heavy with water, then lift them out and let them drain off and you're ready to plant. Now, when it comes to planting, you want to do one thing at a time, kind of like getting all your ducks in a row. So rather than taking the plant out of its pot or plug, planting it, then moving on to the next one, I do everything, each stage all together at once. So in this case, remove everything from its pot and plonk it where you want to plant it. And then I can just go through and plant it all in one go. If your soil is nice and loose, then you could just use your hand to scrape away the soil and plant, which is what I often do. Or you could use a dipper or a trowel. But another little trick is to use a bulb planter. Just shove it in, make a hole, take it out, pop it in and return the soil. Nice and quick. Now, a bulb planter you can use for all sorts of things like planting leeks or, for example, planting potatoes. Rather than digging out a whole trench, just make individual holes for each seed potato using your bulb planter, and it saves a lot of extra digging and work. Being here surrounded by all these raised beds brings me on to my next time-saving tip, and that is to simply stop digging. Now, I'm sure you've heard me going on about this many times before, but by simply stopping the digging, you can really improve things down at the root zone. Now, all of these beds were started off simply by covering the existing lawn with cardboard and then dumping the potting mix or compost directly onto that and then planting into that. How simple is that? Digging not only disrupts the soil life, which is never good news for your plants, it also brings up fresh weed seeds, guaranteeing you plenty of hours of digging, and no one wants that. So what I recommend is to simply ditch the spade and all the hours of hard work that entails, and instead opt for mulches of organic matter such as compost to feed the soil naturally and give your plants a real boost, saving you time too. Some crops are just a lot easier to grow than others. You plant them, you water and weed them, and there's next to no tying in, very few pests, they just get on with it, and your job is simply to harvest them. Examples of that are beans, which simply need picking throughout the summer. Then you've got winter squash and pumpkins, which are harvested all together in one go right at the end of the season, leafy chard, and then say potatoes and garlic. So easy and such a rewarding crop to grow. If you're unsure what other crops make for easy growing, you could try consulting our garden planner. Just show the filters here and select the easy to grow option just here like that. And then the plant selector is filtered to show only those crops that are particularly easy to grow. Fantastic resource. Want to do away with the continuous cycle of sowing and planting altogether? Then grow perennial vegetables, herbs and fruits. That way you plant once and then you harvest year after year. Now, one example is this perennial kale I've got in front of me here. I planted it a couple of months ago and eventually it will grow as tall as me or even taller. It grows all year round, giving these delicious, nutritious leaves week after week, year after year. Now, because perennial vegetables have plenty of time to bulk out and eventually grow really big and robust, they may get affected by pests, but they'll much more easily shake them off. Other perennial vegetables you might want to try include perennial leeks, and then you've got favourites like artichokes, asparagus and rhubarb. Perennial herbs like thyme, oregano and the rosemary here will keep on offering up their leaves year after year. And then there's the legion of fruit trees and bushes like this utterly gorgeous gooseberry. All these rapidly ripening nectarines, they give so much fruit for very little investment in energy from me, my kind of fruit. By the way, do check out our video on growing perennial vegetables and I'll pop a link to that in the description below. Our gardens are one of the few places we can escape the stresses and strains of modern life, including all those machines that we seem to be slaves to nowadays. But just hang on a minute, machines can have a place in the garden too, especially when it comes to saving our precious time. Link irrigation systems up to a timer to automate the time-consuming job of watering. Use drip irrigation or soaker hoses and you'll be delivering water efficiently and precisely where it's needed, down at the roots. Larger beds or borders can be weeded by robots. Yes, believe it or not, this machine here will move between your plants and scratch out weeds. It's got a solar panel, so it's self-charging. Pretty nifty, huh? And then you've got those robotic lawn mowers that move out from their charging station to keep your lawn nice and trim and tidy. And on the subject of lawns, there are many tricks you can employ for a no-fuss lawn. Don't fancy the expense of a mowing robot? Then mow clever. You can leave some areas of the lawn to grow a bit longer. Rather than mowing, say, every week, drop the frequency to, say, every 2 to 3 weeks, which is what I do. You can always make areas of longer lawn look a bit neater by mowing short cropped edges and paths through it. I've got a nice strong mower here that deals with the longer grass, but if you've got a smaller lawn mower, then maybe start on a higher setting before dropping to a shorter cut for the second mow if you're leaving it to grow that little bit longer. When I mow, I just let the grass clippings drop exactly where they've been cut back onto the grass. They fall in big clumps like this, but they do eventually rot down, and by doing that they return their nutrients to the soil, so I never ever have to feed my lawn. Now this is in big clumps, but if you want things a bit neater, then you can buy a mulching mower which cuts them up into really tiny fragments so they rot down that much quicker. Remove fiddly edges so it's easier for the lawnmower to pass over it. Here, for example, I mow right into the shrub here, so there's no edging required with an edging tool. Finally, if you have a small area of lawn, then consider getting rid of it altogether. This area here used to be grass, but then I simply pop these raised beds in here, and I can honestly say they don't take that much longer to maintain than an area of grass. And of course they look beautiful and it tastes delicious too. Other ways you might get rid of tiny lawns are, for example, laying it to gravel with self-seeders popping up here and there, or extending your ornamental borders so they're big, wide and luxurious. Give yourself a head start by simply using really good quality potting mix. This is where investing in decent potting mix really pays off because you'll get stronger plants. Now to that, you can add a slow or time release fertiliser. Just sprinkle it on top and then mix it in. And what that will do is it'll release its nutrients much slower over a period of weeks or even months. That way it delays the supplemental feeding that'll be needed, saving you time. You could also mix in, say, worm castings or something like a volcanic rock dust as well. This will also give you, of course, bigger, stronger plants, which will be less fussy and will give you a crop that much quicker. Save yourself a lot of bother with composting. Now the way I see it, you've got two options here. One is to use one of those compost tumblers, the sort where you rotate the handle and the whole barrel rotates. That keeps everything really neat and it really speeds things up. You can get compost that way within about 2 months. Now that's really fast. The other option is my way, which is to sort of plonk and forget things. I aim for a roughly 50-50 mix of browns such as dead leaves and greens such as these weeds here. I just plonk them all on, walk away and then forget about it. I don't dig it out and turn it, I just leave it. Now, it's a lot slower that way, but it saves me my precious time because I don't need to get involved with it. Once this is full, I'll just start another heap elsewhere and I will get my compost eventually. I just need to wait a bit longer, but my time is saved so I can get on with other jobs. Grass paths are time consuming because they're quite difficult to mow. Instead, opt for paths with straw or, as here, these bark chippings. The only job that will be needed is to occasionally top them up as they rot down into the soil. Now, if you think that's a bit of a waste of resources, well, think about this. As they rot down, they're feeding the ground and by proxy all of the plants around it. They also shelter all manner of beneficial bugs, and you can just plant into the paths as well. Have you got a time-saving tip of your own? Well, you know what to do. Drop a comment below and let us all know about it. Next week, we'll be looking at clever ways of making the most of water. We'll be saving water, of course, saving your money, and of course, saving your precious time. You won't want to miss it, so check you have subscribed and dinged that notification bell so we can let you know once it's out for your viewing pleasure. If you've loved this week's tips and ideas, then do be sure to check out this video here. In the meantime, happy gardening. I'll catch you next time.